Friedrich Nietzsche. You know him as the philosopher who famously declared, "God is dead." But here's the thing most people miss. He wasn't celebrating, he was terrified. He was asking what might be the most modern question of all. When all the old rules, all the old sources of meaning just collapse, what's supposed to guide us? That's the incredible challenge we're diving into today.
Okay, so here's our game plan. First, we're going to explore the crisis Nietzsche saw at the very heart of the modern world, that huge void left behind when God disappears. Then, we'll look at the subtle, new kinds of cages that spring up to control us in its place. But hey, this isn't all doom and gloom. We're going to uncover Nietzsche's radical answer, how to become an artist of your own life, how to create your own sun, and even how to find a new way to deal with other people that goes way beyond simple hatred.
All right, so it all kicks off with one single seismic event, an earthquake that Nietzsche felt was shaking the very foundations of modern life, the total and utter collapse of meaning.
This right here, it's probably Nietzsche's most famous line and hands down the most misunderstood. For him, this wasn't some triumphant shout of atheism. It was a lament. It was him recognizing something absolutely terrifying. That we, through our own science, our own reason, had dismantled the very bedrock that gave Western civilization its morality, its purpose, its entire sense of direction for centuries.
And that is the question, isn't it? When you pull out that central pillar, a massive void just opens up. So what fills it? What guides how we act? If there's no divine law anymore, where do our values even come from? For Nietzsche, this was both the great crisis and the great terrifying opportunity of our modern age.
So what happens when that void appears? Well, you know the saying, nature abhors a vacuum. And so does human society. When the old source of meaning crumbles, new and often totally invisible cages of control spring right up to take its place.
To really get our heads around this, we can borrow a concept from another philosopher, Michel Foucault, who was a huge fan of Nietzsche. He described this idea of a perfect prison called the panopticon, and it works as this powerful metaphor for modern control.
Now, the genius of the panopticon is that it doesn't need whips or chains. See, the prisoner has no idea if they're being watched at any given moment, but they know they could be, and that constant possibility is enough. It forces them to police their own behavior. You internalize the gaze of the guard. You become your own jailer. It's total subjugation without any physical force.
And look, this isn't some dusty old idea. Think about our world right now. Biometric systems track our every move. Social networks create this constant performance where we're all watching and judging each other. The shouting of the marketplace tells us what to buy and who to be. And the intense specialization of our jobs can put what Nietzsche called a lead ceiling on our souls, twisting us to fit into one tiny box. These are the new prisons, and they're everywhere.
But it wasn't just these big external systems that worried Nietzsche. He saw another kind of cage in the ideas of philosophers like Immanuel Kant. See, Kant was all about a universal moral law, something that should apply to everyone, everywhere, no exceptions. For Nietzsche, this was a disaster. He argued that every single action is unique, unrepeatable. To demand that we all act the same way is its own kind of tyranny. It strips responsibility from you, the individual, and builds a brand new cage, all in the name of reason.
Okay, so if we're trapped between the death of old certainties and the rise of these new cages, what do? Where's the exit? Nietzsche's answer was defiant, it was radical, and it was this. We have to stop looking for a system to follow and instead become artists of our own lives.
So Nietzsche's not telling us to go out and find a new God or another universal law to obey. No, the real challenge is to turn inward. Each and every one of us has to take on this monumental task of creating our own values, our own purpose. It is the ultimate creative act.
But, and this is a big but, there's a catch. He draws this very sharp line between two kinds of creation. On one side, you've got authentic creation. This is stuff that's driven by a deep, personal truth, something inside you that has to come out. It's hard, it leaves you tired and wounded, but it's how you forge real meaning. And on the other side, you have market creation, creating for likes, for ratings, for what the public wants. Nietzsche thought this was just degrading. It makes you an addict for applause, and it destroys the free spirit.
Okay, that sounds great, but how do you actually do it? Well, Nietzsche gave us this beautiful metaphor. Imagine learning to love a new, really strange piece of music. At first, it's just noise, it's jarring, and you have to force yourself to even listen. That's step one. Then you start to cultivate a little patience for its weird parts.
Pretty soon, you actually start to anticipate those parts, and finally, you become its devoted, impassioned lover. That journey, that is the path of self-overcoming. Learning to love what is difficult, and in the process, totally expanding who you are.
And this whole process, this journey of self-creation, it all builds up to one of Nietzsche's most powerful and incredible metaphors. He says it's not enough to find a light to follow in the darkness, you have to become the light itself.
This line, man, this gets right to the very heart of his whole project. Don't just go looking for some pre-packaged truth or value system to live by. Create your own. Create a sun that lights up your world, a sun that sets the very terms by which your life and your work are judged. This is the ultimate act of freedom.
So what's the engine driving all of this? It's a concept he called the will to power. And this might just be his most misunderstood idea of all. It's not, I repeat, not about dominating other people. For Nietzsche, the will to power is an internal force. It's that fundamental drive we all have to grow, to expand, to overcome challenges, to master ourselves, and to constantly create and recreate our own values. It's the engine of personal growth.
Okay, but this brings up a huge final question. If everybody is out there creating their own sun, their own values, what happens when those suns collide? I mean, how does this radical individualist philosophy actually work when you have to live with other people?
Well, Nietzsche argues that hatred is basically a product of righteousness. It comes from being so absolutely sure that you have the one and only truth and that anyone who disagrees is just evil and needs to be destroyed. But if you accept that there is no single absolute truth, then hatred just stops making sense. And in its place, Nietzsche offers up something different, something he thought was way more powerful: refined contempt.
So what on earth is refined contempt? Well, it's a way of holding on to your own values, your own perspective, without feeling the need to absolutely crush anyone who's different. Instead of a head-on collision, it creates this subtle distance, an acknowledgement of difference. It's born from a healthy skepticism about all claims to absolute truth, including your own. It lets you say, you know what, I disagree with you. I think my path is superior for me, but I can still recognize the value in your existence. It's a tool for living together, not for destruction.
When you boil it all down, Nietzsche's message is this: life isn't an obligation you have to fulfill, or some decree handed down from on high. It's an experiment. It's a world of dangers and victories, a constant process of testing, learning, and creating. It's a challenge to become the scientist in the laboratory of your own existence.
And so that leaves us with the big question. For us, right here, right now, in our modern world, with the constant shouting of the marketplace, the endless scroll of social media, and the constant pressure to conform, Nietzsche's challenge feels more urgent than ever. In a world drowning in noise and images, how will you find the silence to listen to your own truth? How will you create your own sun?